Okay guys, so we're here at the spa, nice Swedish spa, hope you enjoy it. Make sure they parade that Champions League trophy all around. I'm sure all these guys in Sweden have never actually seen a Champions League in person. I think some Arsenal players might be here, also in preparation for the Super Cup. They can't call themselves Champions of Europe though, so make sure you use that to your advantage. Now, who has the cup? Oh, Ian. Ian, don't drink the bathing water out of the cup. For God's sake, big ears might get sick. Okay, you go see the team doctor tomorrow morning. You might be in doubt for the game now. Just don't drink the bathing water, guys. But apart from that, have as much fun as you like, and then we'll go beat Arsenal in the Super Cup tomorrow. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 168 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well. And coming up in today's episode, as you can see on screen, we've got a European rankings update off the back of the Champions League final at the end of last week. We've also got a youth intake off the back of that. We'll do a transfer update and our squad overview going into this next European season. And we take on Arsenal in the UEFA Super Cup, as well as keep our eye out on the other Icelandic teams in UEFA qualifying. So if you are looking forward to today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. We're not actually going to do the Champions League group stage draw in today's episode. We'll cover that off in a little bit, but we've had to play a lot of football just to get to the Super Cup, let alone to the group stage. So I think we're going to cover that off come the start of tomorrow's episode instead of do it today, but we'll still be able to give a pretty good idea of what our squad is going to look like going into that European season and check in on which teams are still alive in the latter stages of UEFA qualifying from the rest of Iceland as well. But as I said, we are starting things off with a rankings update off the back of that win in the Champions League final at the end of last week. If you did miss that episode, then go check that out. I'll leave a link to it in the top right corner. But starting things off, a league update. We've moved up from 14th to 12th, so just steadily starting to make our way up towards that top 10 ranking in terms of the league. We have gone up 5 places as a club, up to 2nd in the European club rankings. So that should mean, come the draw for the Champions League this season, that we are a pot 1 team. Of course, I'm pretty sure we would have been anyway, because we are the Champions League holders after all, but we are just being outdone at the moment by Manchester United, albeit if you look at the coefficient come the end of next season, we should actually have a pretty good chance of rising up to first, considering we are getting rid of quite a bad year there. So good signs there, nearly at the top of the European rankings as a club. And also we've got a little bit of an update on the coefficient table, got things a little bit mixed up at the end of last week, rising up to 9th. We do get that automatic spot in the group stage, which we got last year anyway for some reason, and also we get a team in the 3rd qualifying round of the Champions League instead of the 2nd qualifying round. So it doesn't change too much there in terms of Champions League qualifying, but interestingly, no changes to what happens in the Europa League or the Conference League as well, which I thought might be the case. So it's pretty similar to how things were anyway, but hopefully if we move up that table a little bit more come the end of this season, we can get an automatic group spot in the Europa League as well. But we have gone forward in time now up until the day of the UEFA Super Cup, where we are going to take on the winners of the Europa League from last season in Arsenal. But before we do a little bit of a recap before that, and also our squad overview as well as a transfer update, we have had our youth intake on the day of this game. And as you can see on screen, not a very good one, not as good as last season even, and that was probably one of our better ones so far in the save. This one does look decidedly average, only 2 players with 3-star potential. They are probably going to be the only 2 players who we do sign from this youth intake. One of those is a defensive midfielder, and Breki Gudmundsson, 1-star current ability, 3-star potential. We'll probably sign him and start training him up so that he can be a useful squad player in the future, all things going well, or we'll make a profit on him, selling him to one of the other fellow Icelandic clubs. He's probably one of the players who we are going to sign out of this youth intake. And the other one there is Trusty Arnason. He is a centre-back, same current ability and the same potential. Decent heading and jumping reach or reach. That does mean he might become useful for us in the future and could also become a squad player for us, but two fairly average prospects there from this year's youth intake who we are going to sign. But before we have a look at our squad going in to this new European season, we'll just recap what we have done off the back of the end of last week. As you can see right up the top there is the Champions League final, and right down the bottom is what we are going to do today. I've played a lot of FM over the weekend. It's been quite a slow grind as well with all of these games that we have had to play. The Champions League draw doesn't take place until after that game down there currently at the bottom. We'll just go down a little bit further, which is against Husavik. So we've got quite a while still to actually get through to that group stage draw, which is why we're not going to do it in today's episode. But a quick domestic update of all the stuff that we have done off the back of that Champions League final. In the league, we have won most of our games. We've gone through pretty well. We did drop points there against From Reykjavik very, very annoyingly because they got a red card in the first half, and off the back of that, it feels like we got pretty hardly FM'd here, even though it was away from home. Definitely a game which we should have got some points out of. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, but those are our only drop points so far in this season. Around that, we have won all of our games. A little bit of a close call there against Husavik as well at the early stages of August. But as I said, apart from those drop points against Fram, we have made our way through the season unbeaten domestically and are in the semi-finals of the Mulka and having just defeated Akranes twice in a week to make sure that we do have a semi-final lined up at the start of September against Breda Blick. And the other semi-final is between Fylkir and Vala Reykjavik. So that's where things do stand in terms of the Icelandic Cup, which hopefully will come back for tomorrow in the second game of that episode and have the final for that competition for. But in terms of how the league does look, having played quite a few games in that, we are on top. Despite those drop points that we did have, we do still have a nice 6-point gap over HK and a very healthy goal differential as well. So in quite a strong position there to be picking up the domestic league yet again, which will guarantee us our spot in the group stages for the Champions League next season. But now it's time for us to reveal the transfers that we have done off the back of winning the Champions League late last week. And here is what the transfer hub does look like off the back of our activity after winning that Champions League. As you can see, since the start of July, there's been quite a bit of activity on both sides. We will start with the outs because that's going to explain a little bit in terms of the ins, but we've just been getting rid of some players for some good money, or players who we weren't really going to use come this season. Anyway, the first of those, Alex Dawes, he's a player who has gone out on loan in the Championship the last couple of seasons. We've let him go permanently. He has gone to Norwich for a fee of £4.8 million, only has that 2-star current ability and that 3-star potential, and even then not all of that is gold. Not the worst looking prospect in terms of a left winger, but he was a foreign one and he just felt like he wasn't quite the right fit for us here at Völsungur. We picked him up for quite cheap off of Manchester United back in 2032. As you can see, a lot of loan spells since then at the likes of Swansea and Sunderland, and we make a good profit off of that deal. He goes to Norwich in the Premier League for £4.8 million. That's the first of our departures. Next on the list, we do have Benjamin Christiansen, a player who hasn't spent that much time here at the club over the past few seasons anyway. He has gone to Fylkir for £69,000, a player who we did sign on a free transfer back in 2032. Not a player with a heap of current ability or potential, and that's why we let him go there to Fylkir, who of course are going to be in a playoff for the Europa League. The next player to leave us was a player who has been here for quite a while. One of the players who has been at the club the longest these days, a player who we did sign off of Nuts KR way back around about 10 years ago, I think it was. Indeed, that was the case. That's because an Italian club, I'm pretty sure it was Hellas Verona, were after them, so we kept him in Iceland with that deal for £120,000. As you can see, very consistent performer was Brynjar Galtason for us, but he leaves to go to Malaga for £5 million. Getting on in age, he was a homegrown club player, so a little bit concerned about letting him go, but he wouldn't have got a lot of game time anyway these days with both Basaroge and Elaine Basicki in his way, and he did want to leave, so we let him go there for a price which, when he was at the club, was over his transfer value. So the Icelandic international, Brynjar Galtason, he has left us going to Malaga in Spain for £5 million. The next player to leave us on a permanent, this is the big one, Nicholas Zimmerman. We have both Augustine Agatigare, who is actually a better right winger than Zimmerman these days, and also Hans Voss, a lot younger and only a few attribute points worse off. So I thought at 29 years old, it was about the right time to get rid of Nicholas Zimmerman potentially. Could have got a little bit more money for him, but £25 million, not bad at all for a player who we did sign back in 2028 only for £600,000 off of PSG. Did a great job out there on the right wing for us, including scoring that goal, which gave us the lead briefly in that Champions League final at the end of last week. Also tucked away a penalty, but as I said, we have Agategere and we also have Hans Voss coming through, who are pretty similar in ability to him. He is the oldest of those players, so we have cashed in on him for £25 million. Nicholas Zimmerman has gone to Napoli, and the other player who we have sold recently, another homegrown club player, Porstein Andersson, very similar case to Brynjar Galtason. He wanted to leave, he goes to the Bundesliga and joins Fortuna Dusseldorf for what I think is quite a good fee for a 29-year-old midfielder of £6.5 million. We signed him all the way back in 2025, so very similar to Brynjar Galtason. Got him out of Norway and Molde for £1.6 million. Did a pretty good job for us in the midfield for 10 years, but it was time to move him on. We've also got some good prospects in his positions here at the club these days as well. Wasn't going to get a lot of game time, so taking the 6.25 million, in fact it was, and he is off to Fortuna Dusseldorf. So those are the outs that we have made. It does mean we do still have a decent transfer budget here at Völsungur after we did make that big signing late last week of Benvu Bayer, but some of that money has been reinvested. So let's take a look at where that money has gone. First off, a couple of free transfers. All of these players aren't going to get a lot of game time in the first team this season. They have gone down into the under-19s, but Lukas Parazek, he comes to us from Sparta Prague, a midfielder with 1.5 star current ability and 3.5 star potential, so not a bad pickup there at all on a free transfer. These guys were punts that we did make about a half year ago when their contracts did enter their last 6 months. Next up is Fabrice Grenet. We have signed him on a free transfer as well. 40 would have a lot more potential than he does. He is a player who we're probably going to try and get rid of as soon as possible. And the other player who we signed on a free transfer come the start of July was Michael Riley. He's a right winger, 1.5 star current ability, 4 star potential, even if only 3 stars of that is gold. He also looks like he is a good pickup for us on a free transfer. And the other free transfer that we did make was only a few days later after we brought this guy into the club on trial, and we quickly realized he actually has quite a bit of potential. This is Erdan Shitty, I believe is how you might say that. Shitty, it probably depends how he's playing on the day, but we've got him on a free transfer, 2 star current ability centre back with 3.5 star gold potential, and it could even go up to 4.5 stars. Gives us some real depth at centre back, which we probably need because Filip Jakubov, one of our backups, doesn't have the greatest potential. So we've just added a little bit of depth there with the signing of Shitey. And as well as that, we did actually sign another backup centre back, not realising that Shitey was quite that good. And that's the first of our signings that we did make in July for some money. And this is Gabriel Kapan. We signed him out of Dynamo Zagreb, very similar in terms of rating there to Shitey, but we spent 6.25 million up front on him, and that will rise by a further 2 million in installments, but quite a promising centre back. So that now means we've got 2 quite highly promising centre backs here at the club, alongside, of course, Richard Waswa, who is already here. So some good promising centre backs at the club for when someone potentially like Ali Ramadan does start to decline, like he might be doing soon, seeing as he is about to get a little bit closer to his 30s, but 2 good centre backs there for not much money. And the other players who we have signed for a little bit of money, first off, Alvaro Arce. We have signed him out of Villarreal in Spain for a very cheap release clause fee of £210,000. He's going to spend most of the season down in the under-19s, but PSG were interested in this guy, so he triggered his release clause, and PSG did not follow suit. 1.5 star current ability, 4 star potential, even though 3 of those are gold, but that does still look like a very, very cheap price there for the Colombian come Spaniard midfielder. So that is one of the main reasons that we did sign him as well. He is EU, despite the fact his main nationality is Colombia, but a fairly promising player who will give some time to in the under-19s this season and see if he turns into anything decent. But at the very least, he's a player who we should be able to turn for a profit if he doesn't make the cut here at Völsungur. And the last signing that we have made going in to this new European season, I thought with the sale of Brynjar Galtason, and before we did have that youth intake, we could use a promising defensive midfielder coming through the ranks, we have signed Alvaro Izpurua out of Osasuna in Spain for a fee of £6 million, 1.5-star current ability, 4-star potential, even though 3 of those are gold, and he looks like a fairly decently promising defensive midfielder, a little bit better than the player who we did just have come through our youth intake. He's going to be also in our under-19s, but can step up, as I said, if we get an injury to a player like Basaroge or Alain Basicki. This upcoming season, so that's the transfer business that we have done. A lot of young players who we have signed off the back of winning that Champions League, but we did already have a pretty good first team here at the club. So it's now time for us to have a little bit of a look at the squad as a whole going into this new European season, which will start in tomorrow's episode. And this is what the first rotation does look like going in to this new European season, when we can use all of our foreign players, of course. Our teams domestically do look a little bit different than this, but we'll make our way through the first team and then make our way down to the main substitute players. First off, Carl Vollen in goal did a really good job for us in his first European season last season. Continues to make good progress since this time last season. Very good option for us in goal is the 25-year-old German. Next up, we have our young wing-back Sredenko Krolo. He is really starting to blossom, is the 20-year-old Croatian. He is now 4-star current ability with that 5-star potential. He is developing very, very nicely already. You could argue probably one of the best wing-backs in the world, and only 20 years old, has made a lot of progress since this time last season. Looks like giving him and also Luis Herrera time in the Champions League last season might have done us a world of good there. And on the other side, of course, we do have Luis Herrera. He hasn't developed quite as much as you would hope. Is actually quite similar in terms of progress to this time last season, but does still have high potential. 2.5-star current ability rating is not too bad at all either. In terms of our centre-back partnership, that's also the same as last season. Filippo Donelli, 3.5-star current ability up top, even though it does look different there on the comparison page. And actually, he's regressed slightly since this time last season, which is a little bit concerning, but he is a classy centre-back. Did a great job for us last season. Hopefully, he can improve over this next European season and get that progress graph back up nicely. And alongside him, Ali Ramadan, the club captain, he has regressed since this time last season, which is not too unexpected for a player at 27 years old, but still 3.5-star current ability and potential. Certainly one of our strongest centre-backs at the club alongside Filippo Donelli. Now we make our way forward into the midfield, where there has been a little bit of change, of course, notably because of the sale back in January of Kalen Rakasan. Basaroge still in the DM role, pretty similar in terms of ability to this time last season, but he is still a very, very good defensive midfielder and only a year or so away now from gaining Icelandic citizenship as well. Also worth mentioning in that Ali Ramadan less than a year from gaining Icelandic citizenship, so that could be quite useful for us domestically when that does happen. With those two players alongside him a little bit further forward in the midfield, the son of Dumbia, he goes back into the box-to-box role after we played him as a Mazzala come the later stages of the Champions League last season. Continues to improve, still 5-star current ability and potential, the best player at the club without a shadow of a doubt, I think it is fair to say. And the new signing is alongside him and Benvenu Baya. We signed him when he was 3-star current ability, and he has already progressed quite nicely with the domestic action that he has gotten up to 4-star current ability and 4.5-star potential, looking like a good option for us in the Mazzala role after we did sign him for £64 million off of Lyon. Then we make our way forward to the front three. Obviously some change here with that sale of Nicholas Zimmerman. Our starting right winger is going to be Augustin Agategre, as I said, actually a little bit better in terms of attributes than Zimmerman was, and that's a good bit of business, of course, because we did sign this guy on a free transfer before the last European season. Did a great job for us coming off the bench in the latter stages of that Champions League when it has progressed quite nicely since this time last season. Only 3-star current ability, but certainly plays a lot better than that and has 4.5-star potential as well. So hopefully giving him some regular game time is going to help him fulfill that potential. Out on the left wing, we do still have Onya Mizkic. His ability does tend to fluctuate between 3 stars and 4 stars. A little bit improved since this time last year. It does fluctuate though, as you can see, as I was saying, but a good option out there on the left wing. And up front, we do still have Adam Saki as our first choice option, still rated at 4-star current ability. Has regressed ever so slightly since this time last season, but is still a very, very good quality striker for us to rely on up front. And then we make our way now onto the bench for what is usually our second choice 11, albeit there are some players who are currently out with injuries. First off, the backup left back, that is Premsel Bokic. I was hoping he would have improved in terms of his actual star rating ability since this time last season, but he has actually progressed quite a decent backup there. To Louis Herrera, next up on the list, Richard Waswa, one of our strong backup centre backs that we do have alongside those new signings, which we did make. He's progressed very nicely since we signed him last season. 2.5-star current ability and 4-star potential. No doubt he might start to put pressure on someone like Ali Ramadan over the next season or two in terms of that starting spot. Next up on the list is Elaine Basicki, now at the same rating as Basaro Gay as a defensive midfielder, and does have high potential as well. Not quite as good as Basaro yet, but he makes sure that if we get an injury in the midfield, we do have a very able replacement who can step in to that first team. With the sale of Nicholas Zimmerman, Hans Voss does become our second choice right winger. He's improved ever so slightly since this time last season, hoping with continued game time that he is going to be able to fulfill that 4-star potential. He has still stuck on 2.5-star current, but as I said, was only a few attribute points behind Nicholas Zimmerman when we did decide to let him go to Napoli, so we shouldn't be missing out on anything there if we do suffer an injury to Agatigara. Have to change things up if Adam Saki is not performing for us in that striker role. Next up, our backup striker for this upcoming European season is going to be Heiko Kunze, the player who we did sign not that long ago for around £5 million. He's improved already since joining the club, has a pretty good record domestically as well already. 2.5-star current ability and 4-star potential, very similar there to Hans Voss. Fabio Maliano is currently on the bench as our Mazzala backup. He doesn't have a great deal of potential, dropping down in terms of his progress as well, but he did recently get an Italian cap, and the reason that he is in there for this game against Arsenal is because Narek Voskanyan is recovering from an injury. Usually, though, we would have Narek on the bench there as that Mazzala backup with that high potential that he does have has improved a little bit compared to this time last season. Hopefully, he can kick on a little bit more this season with a bit more game time in the domestic league. Pedro Lemos is our backup right back, especially as Ian Carlo is just recovering from food poisoning, which is where the intro came from. But Pedro Lemos, a decent backup there for Radenko Kroller with his 2-star current ability, 3.5-star potential, and again has progressed a little bit in an upwards trajectory since this time last season. Next up on the list, we do have Alagard. He's our young left winger who we did sign when we realized that we were going to let go in January of Tomohiro Horikawa. Hasn't played too much for us since he returned here after his loan to Midtjylland, but is making decent progress already. 2-star current ability and 5-star potential, but we're probably going to play him mostly in the under-19s this season because when Jonah is fit, he is a little bit better, but he is currently out injured, but has progressed quite nicely since this time last season, even though he does still have that 2.5-star current ability and that 3-star potential. The backup goalkeeper for us this season is still going to be Peter Lervik, still quite happy here as a domestic cup goalkeeper. He's regressed slightly since this time last season, which is not unexpected considering the drop-off in playing time that he had, but still a very, very able backup for us with that 2.5-star current ability and potential. On the other players who are on the bench, Bruno Costa, our backup box-to-box midfielder. We haven't given him quite as much game time as I would have liked recently because Lassana Doumbia did have a promise that needed to be fulfilled in terms of game time, but that is done now, so Bruno Costa should see a bit more game time in our backup team now as a box-to-box midfielder. 3-star current ability, 5-star potential at 19 years old. Very, very promising squad player here at Völsungur. And rounding out the bench for this game, we do have both Kapan and Shaiti there as extra centre-back options should we need them, but hopefully we don't for this upcoming game. And the rest of the players in our squad who we haven't quite touched on yet, Ian Carlo, he's still here being homegrown club, and Nation with his 2-star current ability and potential. The same applies for Patrick Nygaard, although you can see there he's actually improved quite a bit since this time last season. Also Frederick Larsen, but he is going to be leaving us on a free transfer come the end of October. Also here in terms of the homegrown club at Nation at the moment, still Filip Jakubov. We might sell him if a good offer does come in for him, but he also might be useful in terms of squad registration being under 21, so we don't need to actually register him. 2-star current ability, 3-star potential, but would certainly like to be giving the game time to those younger centre-backs who we have just signed. And apart from that, probably some players who you won't see too much of, the likes of Diogo Ferreira, who has 3-star potential. Rogvi Askam also has a fair bit of potential, but not quite there in terms of his current ability. And the same could be said for Rune Ballo, albeit if we get a bid of 4 million for him, I will happily let him go. But that's where our squad does look like going into this upcoming European campaign, and what our team does look like going into this UEFA Super Cup tie against Arsenal, where hopefully we can complete the big dog set here in Europe and pick up our first Super Cup not too long after picking up our first Champions League title. A quick look at Arsenal. We are still very early on in the Premier League season, which might actually suit us going into this game. But the 15th of August, they are currently top of the Premier League. And in fact, the Premier League hasn't even started yet. We are just a few days before that. So really hard to tell exactly how good Arsenal are at the moment. But we can go back and have a look at the table from last season, where Arsenal did finish 5th. So after we beat Man United in the Champions League final, I'd like to think we've got a pretty good chance here against an Arsenal team who only made the Champions League this upcoming season off the back of their win down in the Europa League, but they were 31 points worse than Man United last season. Hopefully that means that we can do the job over these guys, especially as they are still using this as a pre-season game while we are right smack bang in the middle of our domestic season. But hopefully we can pick up the Super Cup here at our first opportunity too. Looking at this Arsenal team, a few good players in that lineup. Paton in goal is quite a good goalkeeper. Apart from that though, no overly scary names throughout the rest of that Arsenal team that is there on that tactic page. So hopefully this will be a nice win for us, and we'll come back shortly and try and get the job done in Sweden and pick up our first UEFA Super Cup. And TV coverage for this UEFA Super Cup. Here is our team as we ran through before. This is our first choice lineup going into this upcoming European season. Arsenal actually have some quite strong players on their bench, the likes of Martinelli, Adeyemi, as well as some other ones. So they're actually looking a bit stronger potentially on the bench than in their first team lineups. That might show what they do think of the Super Cup, but hopefully we can make the most of that and pick it up here in Sweden. And only 2 minutes into this one, we have the first highlight looking to play out from the back. We are in our green and Arsenal are in the red and white. We try and get that ball forward there to Adam Saki, albeit Arsenal briefly have possession. Good interception there by Agatire, and we get back on the front foot. Nice ball there from Lasana Doumbia. Saki will take that around the goalkeeper, and after only 2 minutes, as long as VAR does not intervene, and it is going to, so we'll just wait and see here. But indeed, the goal has been awarded after only a very, very brief break, and that is a perfect start for us here in the Super Cup. Nice ball there from Doumbia after we got the ball back through Agatire. Saki takes that around the goalkeeper, puts it into the top right corner, and just like that, it is 1-0 Völsungur early on in the Super Cup. And less than a minute off the back of that opening goal, we scramble that ball out through Calvin, and Arsenal get a chance to try and counter here. Isaac does something down the right-hand side. He's quite a promising right back. I did eye up a couple of seasons ago, but I thought Radenko Krolo was already at the club, so I thought we'd just stick with him for the time being, and it does look like that is going to pay off with that good improvement that he has shown since this time last season. But at the moment, Arsenal are keeping position quite nicely here, but hopefully this is a game which we can win, and we have started off in quite good fashion and make sure that we do stay in the upper echelons of European football and try and defend our crown. Good chance there for Carlos. I thought he might actually be offside. He was not, but it does come off the post, so a big chance there for Arsenal to level things up, but we are still 1-0 ahead coming up to the 10-minute mark. And we go forward all the way to the 26-minute mark for our next highlight. Arsenal are getting more shots off in this game, but so far none on targets. That's what's helping us in this one, but pretty even game apart from the fact that they're not hitting the target with their shots. Position quite even, and we get a chance here to play out from the back, and we try and get something potentially here going down our right-hand side. Denali up to Krolo. Now Agatire should be able to find a midfielder. Unfortunately, gets the ball robbed of him there from Moleas, and Arsenal have a chance on the counter-attack, and they make the most of it. Kosic will bury that in the bottom right corner, and Agatire there, just a little bit too long on the ball, hit an option inside him, did not look for it, and the goal will remain despite the fact that VAR has had a quick check of it. So that means that Arsenal do get an equaliser. As I said, Agatire there, a little bit too long on the ball, and from there Arsenal with a good counter-attack, and that makes it 1-1 with about 20 minutes left in this first half. And we get a good chance here to strike back only a few minutes off the back of that Arsenal equaliser, but Husavik crashes that into the upright. That's that highlight finished. Still 1-1 with about 15 minutes left of the first half. And inside the last few minutes of this half, we are starting to get on top of Arsenal and might have a chance here as we look to play out from the back, off the back of a goal kick. Hopefully this time we can keep the ball down our right-hand side as Denali finds Doumbia, and we get that forward to Agatigere. Takes his time on it again and again. Misses out on possession, so it's a little bit slow on the ball here at the moment through Agatigere, but thankfully Radenko Krolo does get possession back for us here. Nice ball over the top from Doumbia, and this could be a repeat of the previous first goal, but this time Adam Saki blasts that over the top. Should probably be 2-1, but still 1-1 as we do start to enter injury time in this first half, but yet again we get a chance to play out from the back, and again we play that forward to Agatigere, this time in a bit more space, and he gets that ball forward to Adam Saki, and now Radenko Krolo is on the ball as we just play that back and try and settle things down here and try and inch our way deeper inside Arsenal territory. But Mizkic finds a way through the Arsenal defence, and that looks like a very close call there for a penalty. I think one step more either side, and that is outside the box, but that might just be inside that left corner there. And indeed, VAR does agree. So just inside the box there from Mizkic, and Adam Saki has a chance to make up for that big chance he had before, this time from the penalty spot. He goes bottom left corner, and Patong can't quite reach it. And I think that's a deserved lead now that we should take into half-time 2-1, with only a little bit extra now left in the first half because we are over added time just inside the box. That challenge from the Arsenal defender, and Saki makes the most of it. And that means, as I said, we should go into half-time with a 2-1 lead. And as you can see, based on the stats, I think that's fair enough, even if you do consider the fact that we did get a lot of XG for that last chance from the penalty spot. But apart from that, a little bit frustrating to concede their only shot on target, but I think we're playing well. Hopefully, we can kick on a little bit more in the second half, especially because we might have a little bit more match fitness in Arsenal, considering where they are in their season over in England at the moment. But it's 2-1 as we're about to kick off the second half of the Super Cup final. And very early on in the second half, it's an early highlight here. Radenko Krolo will play this out to Mizkic off the back of earning us this penalty, and we have possession right on the edge of the box. Bayer now right outside it, plays it to Husavik. It's a little bit of a poor pass there, but we get the ball back. Now Mizkic will let one rip, and Patong can't keep it out. He gets a touch on it, but the power is too much there from Mizkic. And very early on in the second half, we get a 2-goal cushion, and hopefully that will go a long way to us here winning this UEFA Super Cup. Looked like we would lose possession here, but it was an intercept. I think that might be from Doumbia or Bayer, not quite sure which one, but the ball goes forward to Mizkic, just gets that beyond the hand of Patong, and it's 3-1 here early in the second half. And we go forward down to the 69-minute mark for our next highlight, well and truly on top of Arsenal now. That might be because of that fitness, which we do have a Mizkic here. Right on the edge of the box, just rips that into the top right corner. Very similar sort of style that to a goal he scored against Dortmund back in the first knockout round early last week. That time he went for the bottom left corner against 10 men. This time goes top right, and that is a wonderful goal there from Mizkic. He picks up a double, also earned us that penalty as well, so he is having one heck of a game, and just like that, that makes it 4-1 with 20 minutes left in the Super Cup final. And only a few minutes off the back of that fourth goal, I think we're in a pretty safe spot now, and we can make some substitutions. Lassana Doumbia has gone down to a red heart, so Bruno Costa will come on for him. And while we're here, Benvenu Bayer not quite playing as well as he's capable of, and we'll give Fabio Mariano some game time while he is in the team. That's 2 of our subs used as we're 4-1 up with just over 15 minutes left. And just about to enter the last 10 minutes of this one, Husavik has now gone down to a red heart, so this will be our last substitution, Alain Basicki, to come on for him with a 4-1 lead. And we are right in the latter stages of this one now. I think our match fitness is well and truly telling here in the second half, and we are going to pick up the Super Cup to go alongside our Champions League from the last European season. But we are on the attack here, some good short passing just outside the box. Bruno Costa chips that over Patong, and that puts a cherry on top. And in the end, this is going to be a little bit of a spanking here of Arsenal. 5-1 in the Super Cup, and Bruno Costa will come off the bench and just dink that over the Scottish goalkeeper in Gordon Patong. Nice chip there from right around the penalty spot. Patong gets to his knees and can't quite reach it, and that will make it 5-1 here in the Super Cup final. As you can tell there by the stats, well and truly got on top of Arsenal there in the second half, and that means that we are both Champions League winners, the Super Cup holders, as well as the current FIFA World Club Cup champions as well. So we've got a nice little treble at the moment there at Völsungur. We'll make the most of this and hopefully be able to do the same thing again next season. But we pick up the UEFA Super Cup thanks to, in the end, a very comfortable 5-1 win over Arsenal. So a very nice win for us there in the Super Cup, 5-1 over Arsenal. As you can see, that gets added to what's looking like quite a nice trophy case here at the moment at Völsungur. You can also see a few new favoured personnel at the club alongside Nicolucci Caviglia. Now we do have Lasana Dumbia as well as Fabio Mariano. But we have gone forward a few days off the back of that Super Cup final just to update things going into the last round of UEFA qualifying, because we'll do a recap of that come the start of tomorrow's episode, as well as reveal who we do get in the group stage draw, seeing as we are still 10 days out from that, and I have 3 games to play off camera in the league, so I'll do that before we do get stuck into the first game of our Champions League group in tomorrow's episode. So we'll run through this fairly quickly. First off, HK did start things off in the second qualifying round of the Champions League on the league path side. We unfortunately actually got quite a tough draw there in that second qualifying round. They took on Anderlecht of Belgium, a team who have been in the Champions League quite regularly so far. In the save, they did lose the first leg 3-0 away from home, and that did always put them in quite a tricky spot. They won the second leg 2-1, but unfortunately HK, after reaching a Champions League playoff last season, they go down to the Europa League after only the second qualifying round off the back of a 4-2 aggregate loss there. And things got no better for HK in the third qualifying round of the Europa League. Again, quite a tough draw there, it feels like, as they did take on Lokomotiv Moscow. They suffered a 1-0 defeat in the second leg off the back of a draw in their home league. So that means they're actually down in a Conference League playoffs. So HK potentially on the verge of not making European football this season. And we do also have some teams who did start in the earlier phases of Conference League qualifying. The first of those was Vala Reykjavik. They entered in the second qualifying round of the Conference League. You can see them there about a third of a way down. They took on Usters of Sweden, and unfortunately they suffered a 2-1 defeat in the second leg off the back of a 2-0 defeat in the first league. So Vala Reykjavik got knocked out fairly early there in the second qualifying round in the Conference League, but we did still have Breda Blick entering in the third qualifying round, and they took on Paxi from Hungary, as you can see, quite close there to the bottom, and unfortunately they also have been knocked out of European qualifying. That is off the back of a 3-1 defeat. They lost the second leg 2-0, so we're actually tied up there going into that second leg, but Breda Blick also not getting the job done there down in the Conference League in that third qualifying round. So that does mean that we have 2 teams in playoffs in Europe this season. It might mean that we potentially end up still with 3 teams in Europe like we did last season, but HK are all the way down in a Conference League playoff, albeit I'd like to think they can get their way through to the group stages of that Conference League. They are taking on a team out of Bulgaria called Cherno Morvana, based on what they did in Europe last season, getting through the second knockout round of that Conference League after being in the group stages of the Europa League. As long as they take that game seriously, I'd like to think HK will make their way through to the group stage draw for the Conference League. So hopefully we'll bring that to you guys at the start of tomorrow's episode as well, and see how they get on in the first match week of the Conference League. But they do still need to beat Cherno Morvana there out of Bulgaria. And up in the Europa League, of course, we do still have Filkir. They enter in a playoff. They have quite a tough draw there, though. They take on a team who was in their group last season. They actually matched it with Nice quite well, a Nice team who did reach the final of that competition, and that is AC Horsen. So we might actually end up, hopefully, with 2 Icelandic teams down in the Conference League. That might actually be quite a good thing. Will give them a good chance there to pick up some coefficient points in the group stages, and maybe HK should also be expected to get out of their group if they can make it past that playoff in the Conference League as well, based on how they did in the knockout rounds of that Conference League last season. So far, qualifying in Europe not going very well for the Icelandic teams, but we are still in a position where I'd like to think we're going to get 3 teams into the group stages, even if 2 of those teams are probably going to end up both being in the Conference League alongside us, of course, in the Champions League. And before we do wrap things up in today's episode, a quick update on what the coefficient does look like come the start of this 35-36 season. We are up in 9th. Why we're showing you this is to show you what things do look like at the moment going into the start of the next coefficient season we will be on a 39.667, only getting rid of a 5.6. So this is another year that we could make quite a good rise up the coefficient table if we can match what we have done over the past 4 seasons. Not doing very well so far, obviously, based on those results, which you have seen from the other Icelandic teams in European qualifying, but even still, we'd go above Holland into 8th spot on that coefficient table and might also be able to jump above the Czech Republic, depending on how we do this upcoming season. So we should be on for another decent jump inside that top 10 here on the coefficient table, as long as those other Icelandic clubs get their butt into gear come the playoff round, and if they do a good job in the group stages, hopefully alongside us, especially as I said, as we should. Well, we're definitely going to be a pot 1 team this season, of course, being the Champions League holders. But that will do it for today's episode, winning the Super Cup quite comfortably and also doing that squad overview as well as a recap of how the other Icelandic teams have got on in UEFA qualifying so far. If you did enjoy it, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. As I said, we'll start off tomorrow, run through the group stages of the European competitions where all the Icelandic teams are, and then we'll play our first group game, which we'll be able to tell who it is against by the thumbnail, and hopefully we should also have a cup final in the Mulkabikkerin as well, as long as we get the job done off the back of that group draw against Breda Blick. I'd like to think that we can beat them and take on one of Fylkir or Vala in the Mulkabikkerin final. So we should be on for a pretty normal episode tomorrow. We'll just add in the fact that we don't quite know who we're playing in our first Champions League group game yet. But until tomorrow, where we start things off yet again for another European season, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.